All right, welcome. It's been a couple weeks since I got to do a YouTube video after a couple of weeks of a sinus infection. Not pleasant. Anyway, but that has thankfully passed through. So this is Jim Ventura, navigational consultant and professional astrologer and expert on a lot of different metaphysical subjects. Finally getting to part two of our discussion about soul age and focusing today mostly on mature and old souls. So quick little rehash, if you didn't catch part one of the video, go back over that. But there are basically 7 stages of soul evolution that we move through reincarnational cycles. 5 of them largely are manifest on the physical plane in a body. The other 2 we won't get into discussion about. They're less commonplace in terms of being physical, but the 5 are significant. So the simple designations are infant, baby, young, mature and old souls. Have nothing to do with chronological age, by the way. You know, you could be a baby soul in 37 and old soul in 37. So they're just more designations of what the focus is, the priorities are during that time. So quick little run through the other stages. Infant souls are new to the physical plane. It's about survival. Baby souls are a little more experience, all about rules and regulations and focusing on structures of society. Young soul cycle is about lifetimes where it's the overcome, to strive to, the classic rags to riches story, the urge to conquer the physical plane, to do well, and probably the least of the more spiritual focused cycles, obvious reasons because it's very focused on acquisition. Then finally, after all these life cycles, we move into what's called the mature soul stage. And this is categorized by, I always like to use the motto for the mature soul, which is do it anywhere but here. So there's more empathy, more understanding after many lifetimes in male, female bodies and different races and experiences. Much more heightened empathy, awareness, understanding, compassion toward other people becomes very paramount for the mature soul, which is obviously a wonderful quality, understanding, compassion, and empathy. On the negative side, because you can walk in other people's shoes and feel other people's feelings and emotions, there can be a lot of overwhelm that can happen for mature souls, ergo the expression do any place but here. Sometimes it's just overwhelming to have certain people around us, not because we hate them or find them difficult, but because it's exhausting. So the mature soul, it's a lot about relationships, heavily explored, and all of it, those extremes. But the mature soul, of course, is seeking answers to life's questions. So often there's expansion in looking at different philosophy and religion and other perspectives that would not really likely be explored during the younger soul stages. Mature souls might seek higher education, but not necessarily in an institutional setting. You know, you can have the carpenter, or, but again, some mature souls will be able to accomplish that task of higher education as well. They tend toward quieter faiths, even if raised in organized religion, they tend to kind of tailor it to their own perspective, a little bit more understanding. So this can be a stage that, again, a lot of empathy, but can lead to a lot of confusion. And fortunately, mature souls learn through anguish, which is sometimes just being overwhelmed and having to remove themselves inevitably from the intensity. Then after these life cycle come what we call the old soul stage. So very similar to the mature soul stage, of course, with a lot of that expansion and understanding and empathy and compassion. But old soul cycle has a little bit of a different vibe to it. Motto is you do what you want and I'll do what I want. Strong creativity for older souls. The old soul sees itself as part of something greater, even if they're not consciously aware of what that might be. Old soul often will seek the path of least resistance. Often a lot of talents and abilities, a lot of lifetimes under the belt, so to speak, but not necessarily as motivated to rise to the top of the ladder for old souls, because again, that's more of a young soul thing. Religion becomes even more expansive, seeing God in a grove of trees. Rarely do you find old souls clinging to dogma for very long. It's not uncommon for, again, that heightened awareness to to have some elements of, it's common for older souls to be bisexual, whether they act on it or not. There's an element of that. All souls can have that experience, but for older souls, again, you can kind of understand the vibe of experiencing, multiple bodies and lives, and having a broader viewpoint in that context. It's sort of humorous to say old soul cooks might follow a recipe, but will alter it according to their own unique style and need. Often there's a strong connection to animals and plants and things that can be uncanny to others. I've always been able to talk to animals as an old soul and calm even wild animals in a weird way. That kind of freaks people out sometimes, but I think it's kind of an older soul thing that can be very strong. So ultimately what you find for the old soul is there is the strong urge to burn off karma. The positive side of that is the old souls often are less inclined to cause harm, to hurt others. Even if they do, they tend to learn fairly quickly and be uncomfortable about that. So there can be a little bit of a kind of a walking on eggshells kind of feel for old souls sometimes, again, not to do others harm, not to create new karma, to have to kind of come back and pay back again. So often that's kind of that part. Although old souls can put themselves in circumstances where the karma is difficult. As an old soul myself, I was raised by two baby soul parents who I love dearly and very structured and very, with religion, and my parents stayed together, and it was very classic, and it was a good family upbringing. But, early on, as typical of a lot of old souls, I felt like a square peg in a round hole. I felt weird. I rejected a lot of the more, dogmatic elements of religion and philosophy. Even at a young age, I was beginning to doubt those things or question them, which did not make my family happy by any means. But that is common for both mature and old souls to sometimes be raised by younger souls and have that confusion that comes into play. It's hard for an older soul because there's a certain element of detachment that begins to come into play, again, from often being able to glimpse a larger picture, to become fanatical about a specific religion or scientific belief, or certainly political ones. That expansiveness begins to see multiple sides to things and have a hard time fully committing to one point of view in that way. So, the deep, intense emotion can be there for older souls, but sometimes, again, more capable of detachment and being able to move away from being trapped in those extremes that are harder for mature souls to pull away from. That's why mature souls are often drawn to old souls for that reason. It's where they're heading. Yet mature souls often are better at handling young souls, where old souls kind of aren't great at that. There's a little bit too much of a distance that way. You can often tell soul age a lot through people's eyes. Infant souls have a kind of a fear, intense look. Baby souls, it's more rigid. Young souls, it's solid but not necessarily deep. Mature soul eyes tend to be very deep and multi-layered. Old souls' eyes have that too, but even have a spark to them in a way that is lighter, or it's kind of an awareness that is hard to pinpoint. So all souls learn a different way. I went through some of those in the past. Mature souls, again, learn through anguish. Eventually have to remove themselves from it. Old souls, unfortunately, learn through terror. So, because the other stuff won't work. Young souls learn through loss. Baby souls learn through pain. Mature souls learn through anguish. So for old souls, it's terror. And, it means every once in a while you go through a terrifying experience, have to overcome it. No easy task. Then you make you stronger, and you kind of feel like a little bit of a badass once you're through it. And that way is an older soul. So there can be, detachment about that subject because you've karmically moved through it and see it through a different lens. But ultimately, the old soul thing is self-karma, finding a way to maneuver through this life with the understanding that there's something wrong with your way of being. It's just society tends to not value that. So old souls are often great manifestors and will, again, typically find the path of least resistance, especially when they stop struggling with themselves. It's hard to think of a lot of famous example of old souls. There are some actors and celebrities, like you can look at someone like Woody Allen. Not Woody Allen, sorry, that's definitely mature soul intensity. was going to say Woody Harrelson would be a great example of an early older soul. Bill Murray, you kind of see that vibe that's in play, whereas someone like someone like Oprah would be really mid-level mature soul with that depth, or Cher being late young soul. So it's interesting when you look at it from that angle. So the other thing I would mention real quick is that people are playing out different stages of soul evolution. So even if you're an older soul, you might have pockets of stuff that's infant in you in a way, like you may absolutely love hunting or things in an intense way that are past memories that you're good at. But again, see that in a larger picture and an understanding. And, ultimately, maybe even as we get older in chronological age, only maybe, 35-40% of people are acting from their true soul age. Again, it has a lot to do with the imprinting of who you raised you and the cultures you were around that affect us. So, it can take a little bit to come into soul age. But remember, there's no good or bad stages of soul age. Every soul age wants to love and grow and evolve and experience, what they set out to. It's just, again, there's different vibes in each cycle that become kind of important as part of that experience. And again, for the older soul, it is learning detachment and to accept the self and the world. So mature and old souls can both often get labeled as old souls for that reason, because of that depth and that intensity. All right, quick rundown of the mature and old soul with a little more detail as I had promised. And if you want information about any of my services, including classes and personal sessions, all that good stuff, go to jimventura.com. And you can catch my radio show on Blog Talk Radio, as well as my every other month column on Blogspot, or just email me at venturasag@yahoo to get added to the mailing list so you can read the columns directly. And I'll be back next month with another video and chat about some other hopefully interesting subject. Cheers.